The gavel struck, echoing like thunder across the silent courtroom as Erin Cole's breath caught in her chest. The judge's words tore through the air, final and merciless. Erin said, "This isn't justice. This is a burial." Her voice cracked, trembling under the weight of betrayal. The whispers of onlookers swirled like smoke, feeding the fire of scandal. She gripped the worn edge of the table, her knuckles pale, eyes fixed on the polished floor that refused to steady her spinning world. Maya Brooks shifted in her seat, her comforting smile masking the truth she buried beneath. The silence pressed down heavier than the verdict itself, suffocating Erin's resolve. Outside, storm clouds brewed, rattling the courthouse windows with an ominous promise. Jonah Reed slipped into the back, his restless eyes darting, a secret burning on his lips. Erin whispered to herself, "Everything is gone. And it started with a deal I never signed." The courthouse hallway stretched like a tunnel of whispers, Erin's footsteps echoing as she tried to breathe. She muttered, "They've stolen my voice. And still they want my silence." Maya walked beside her, radiating warmth that hid razor edges. She said softly, "You're not alone, Erin. People will remember your truth." Erin stopped, her eyes catching the reflection of her pale face in the glass doors, haunted and hollow. The storm outside pressed against the building, glass rattling with every gust. Jonah lingered behind, sketchbook tucked under his arm, his sharp eyes burning with secrets too heavy for his young shoulders. Erin whispered, "Justice is already gone, and I can feel the walls closing in." The air outside the courthouse was sharp with rain, each drop cold against Erin's trembling skin. She whispered, "I should have fought harder." Maya raised an umbrella, her voice steady, "You've fought more than anyone could." The storm swallowed their words, thunder breaking above like a cruel reminder. Erin's gaze lifted to the courthouse steps where reporters huddled, cameras hungry for her collapse. Jonah lingered near the base of the stairs, his jaw clenched, eyes locked on Erin with an intensity she couldn't ignore. Lightning split the sky, illuminating faces twisted with judgment. Erin said, "The deal was sealed long before I ever stepped into this room." The car ride was silent, except for the rain hammering against the roof. Erin sat stiff in the back seat, staring out at blurred city lights. Maya said gently, "You need rest, Erin. Tomorrow you'll find strength." Erin shook her head, her voice flat. "Strength doesn't matter when truth is already buried." The windshield wipers dragged like a ticking clock, each swipe marking her stolen future. Jonah leaned forward from the back corner, restless fingers tapping his sketchbook. He muttered under his breath, "Buried things don't stay buried." Erin turned to him, startled, her eyes searching his for meaning. The apartment felt colder than the storm outside. Erin dropped her coat, collapsing onto the couch as silence pressed down. She whispered, "I don't even know who I am anymore." Maya set a steaming cup of tea on the table, her tone soft. "You're still you, Erin, even if they try to erase you." Jonah leaned against the doorframe, his restless gaze flickering between them. He said, "Erasure only works if you stop fighting." Erin closed her eyes, exhaustion dragging her into shadows. The storm outside rumbled like a warning, lightning flashing across the cracked blinds. The morning sun broke through heavy clouds, but Erin Cole felt no warmth as she sat at her kitchen table. The untouched coffee steamed beside her, forgotten like every promise she once believed. She whispered, "They have stripped me of everything but breath." Across from her, Maya Brooks leaned forward, her hands wrapped around her own cup with serene calm. She said softly, "You're not alone, Erin. People see what's been done to you, even if they stay silent." Erin's gaze drifted toward the sealed letter, resting on the counter, a relic she could never bring herself to open. The storm from the night before had left puddles glistening on the street outside, a reminder of battles still raging unseen. Jonah Reed tapped his pencil against his sketchbook in the corner, eyes sharp as he muttered, "Letters hide truths you're afraid to face." Erin flinched, her voice quiet. "Some truths are heavier than any verdict." The city streets were alive with hurried footsteps and the rumble of traffic, but Erin felt like a ghost drifting through a world that no longer saw her. She pulled her coat tighter, her eyes darting at every passing face. She muttered, "Every look feels like a verdict." Maya walked beside her, radiating warmth as her hand brushed Erin's arm. She said gently, "They don't matter. The truth doesn't vanish because people whisper." Yet Erin could feel the eyes of strangers burning holes into her, whispers sharpening into unseen blades. Jonah trailed behind, his sneakers splashing through shallow puddles as he stared at a folded flyer in his hand. He said with quiet defiance, "Some people do see, they just don't speak until it's too late." Erin stopped, her chest tightening, the words clawing into her like an accusation she could not escape. Inside a quiet cafe, the hum of conversation and clinking cups felt distant as Erin sat in the corner booth. Her hands shook slightly as she stirred a cup she would never drink. She whispered, "Even silence has become heavy." Maya leaned closer, her voice steady. "Then let me carry it with you. You don't need to hold all of this alone." Erin's eyes lifted, catching her reflection in the cafe window, pale and hollow against the world outside. Jonah sat across from them, his sketchbook resting on the table, lines already shaping Erin's haunted face. He muttered, "Pictures don't lie, even when people do." Erin flinched at his words, the truth cutting sharper than comfort. She said quietly, "I've been turned into a story they want to bury before it's told." The park was damp from last night's storm, benches glistening under the pale light of a breaking afternoon. Erin walked slowly along the gravel path, her steps heavy, her breath clouding in the cool air. She whispered, "This place feels more like a graveyard than a refuge." Maya kept pace beside her, hands folded neatly in her coat pockets. She said softly, "It's not the place that matters, it's the company you keep." Jonah darted ahead, restless, his shoes scattering wet leaves as he sketched shapes in the margins of his book. He called out, "Graveyards hold more truths than any courtroom." Erin stopped, her gaze locking on a weathered statue at the path's edge, its stone face cracked yet defiant. She said, "Maybe broken things are all I have left." The evening closed in as shadows stretched long across Erin's apartment walls. She sat on the floor near the window, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars. Her voice trembled as she said, "I'm fading into someone I don't recognize." Maya placed a blanket gently over her shoulders, her tone soft, "You're still yourself, Erin. Broken doesn't mean gone." Jonah leaned against the wall, sketchbook pressed to his chest as he muttered, "Broken is the beginning, not the end." Erin closed her eyes, the sound of sirens in the distance mixing with the hum of traffic below. She whispered, "If beginnings feel like endings, what hope is left for truth?" The silence that followed was heavier than words, draping the room in suffocating weight. The dimly lit records office smelled of dust and secrecy as Erin Cole flipped through worn folders, her hands trembling with urgency. She muttered, "They've buried evidence, but paper still remembers." Maya Brooks stood close, calm yet unreadable, her voice steady. "Be careful, Erin. Shadows grow thicker the deeper you dig." Jonah Reed crouched on the floor nearby, sketchbook balanced on his knees, his restless eyes darting across the scattered documents. He whispered, "They never expect someone like me to be watching." The silence carried weight, broken only by the soft hum of a flickering overhead bulb. Erin's eyes froze on a document stamped with a date that didn't belong. She whispered, "This changes everything." Rain lashed against the diner's neon-lit windows as Erin stared across the table at Maya, the weight of the discovery pressing down on her chest. Erin said, "This proves the case was twisted before it began." Maya's eyes narrowed faintly, though her smile never faltered. She replied, "Proof is only power when someone dares to use it." Jonah sat at the end of the booth, restless fingers sketching shapes into napkins, his voice sharp, "And when you use it, people come for you." Erin leaned forward, her voice low, "Then let them come. Silence has already killed me once." The clatter of dishes and faint hum of music did nothing to mask the storm brewing inside. The underground garage echoed with dripping water, and the hum of distant engines as Erin clutched the folder tighter to her chest. She whispered, "If they know I have this, they won't stop until I'm erased." Maya's hand brushed her arm, steady as ever, her voice calm. Fear gives them power. Don't let it swallow you. Jonah stepped out from the shadows, his sketchbook tucked under his arm, his words sharp. They already fear what's inside that file. Erin's gaze darted around the concrete pillars, every shadow stretching like a threat waiting to strike. She said with a trembling breath, "Then the truth is worth the cost." The newsroom was alive with ringing phones and clattering keyboards, but Erin felt the silence between herself and the journalist at the desk. She said, "This evidence proves the case was rigged, and someone wanted me destroyed." The journalist looked uneasy, his eyes darting toward the door before muttering, "Powerful people don't let stories like this lie." Maya stood behind Erin, her hand lightly touching her shoulder, her smile masking unease. She said softly, "The truth can't be killed if it's spoken loudly enough." Jonah leaned against the wall, restless energy radiating from him, his voice cutting in. "Then say it before someone else buries it deeper." Erin's chest tightened as she whispered, "I don't know if I'm strong enough." The alley was slick with rain, shadows stretching under the glow of a single flickering street lamp. Erin clutched the folder tighter, her breath fogging in the cold night air. She whispered, "They'll come for me now." Maya's calm voice steadied the space. "Then we move carefully, step by step." Jonah's restless figure shifted at her side, his tone sharp. "No one hides forever, Erin. Not even them." The sound of footsteps echoed at the alley's mouth, sending shivers through the silence. Erin's heart pounded as she said, "If this ends tonight, let it end with truth in my hands." The storm above rumbled faintly, a warning stitched into the darkness. The abandoned library creaked under the weight of silence, its shelves looming like forgotten guardians. Erin Cole traced her fingers across dusty spines, whispering, "The truth has been here all along, waiting to be seen." Maya Brooks followed closely, her calm voice steady. "Truth is only power if it reaches the right ears." Jonah Reed crouched by a broken window, his sketchbook open, restless lines taking shape. He muttered, "Secrets rot louder than screams when no one listens." Erin pulled a hidden file from behind a loose panel, her breath sharp as she read the name, stamped in bold. She whispered, "It was you all along." The dim office smelled of ink and stale coffee as Erin dropped the file on the desk with trembling hands. She said, "This name is tied to every missing piece." Maya glanced at the papers, her calm mask slipping just enough to reveal unease. She said softly, "Sometimes truth destroys more than lies ever could." Jonah leaned over the desk, his sharp eyes tracing the documents. He muttered, "It's him. He's the one pulling the strings." Erin's voice cracked as she whispered, "The Velvet Blade has been here from the start." The rain-soaked courtyard echoed with distant sirens as Erin stood beneath the archway, clutching the file to her chest. She whispered, "Every wound I carry traces back to him." Maya's voice remained soothing, yet sharp beneath its softness. "You must decide whether justice is worth the ruin it brings." Jonah kicked at loose stones, restless energy spilling out as he muttered, "Ruins are where new fires start." Erin's chest tightened as the weight of betrayal pressed deeper, her gaze fixed on the courthouse glowing in the distance. She said, "The Velvet Blade will answer for this." Inside the candlelit church, shadows stretched across cracked walls, the silence broken only by Erin's uneven breath. She whispered, "He's been in every room, every shadow, shaping my ruin." Maya stood behind her, voice low but edged. "The Velvet Blade thrives because people believe his lies." Jonah's restless figure shifted near the altar, his words sharp, "Then expose him before he cuts deeper." Erin knelt, her trembling hands gripping the pew, eyes burning with defiance. She said, "I won't let him win." The rooftop wind howled as Erin stood on the edge, the city lights burning far below. She whispered, "Every step has led me to this truth, and there's no turning back." Maya's calm voice cut through the storm. "The Velvet Blade controls the story, but you can take it from him." Jonah leaned against the ledge, restless energy sparking as he muttered, "Truth shouted from the edge shakes the world louder than silence ever will." Erin raised the file above her head, rain soaking the pages, her voice firm. "He will not bury me." The courtroom was packed once more, the air heavy with anticipation and dread. Erin Cole stood tall at the center, her voice trembling but unbroken as she said, "The truth you silenced has returned." The velvet blade sat in the front row, his eyes sharp, his composure unshaken. Maya Brooks stood behind Erin, her calm smile hiding a storm beneath, whispering, "Once you speak, there is no return." Jonah Reed leaned against the wall, sketchbook open, lines capturing the tension in the room. He muttered, "They're waiting for you to break, but breaking is how you win." Erin's heart pounded as she gripped the file, every eye fixed on her. She whispered, "This ends today." The file burst open across the judge's bench, pages scattering like shards of broken truth. Erin said firmly, "Every piece of this proves the verdict was a lie." The velvet blade's lips curved faintly, his silence louder than denial. Maya leaned forward, her calm tone steady. "The truth has weight even when buried." Jonah slammed his sketchbook shut, muttering, "And now it's louder than their whispers." Erin's chest rose with a sharp breath as she looked toward the judge, her voice trembling. "What more will you deny when the evidence screams louder than I can?" The judge's gavel slammed, demanding silence, but the echoes could not drown Erin's defiance. She shouted, "Justice has been sold, and I will not pay the price." The velvet blade finally spoke, his voice smooth and cutting. "Truth is nothing without control." Maya's hand pressed against Erin's arm, steady but trembling, her words soft. "Don't let him twist it again." Jonah leaned forward, eyes blazing, muttering, "He's losing his grip." Erin's heart thundered, her voice rising. "You built your power on lies, and tonight it crumbles." The storm outside cracked the sky open as thunder rolled through the courtroom. Erin stood unflinching, her voice breaking but strong. "You cannot erase what I have lived." The velvet blade rose slowly, his shadow stretching across the floor, his tone low. "Then you will carry it until it consumes you." Maya's voice trembled for the first time. "Truth can consume lies faster than fire." Jonah stepped closer, his words sharp. "You're not untouchable anymore." Erin raised the final page high, her voice fierce. "This is the end of your silence." The silence after Erin's final words was heavier than thunder, a weight pressing down on every breath. The velvet blade's face cracked with the faintest shadow of defeat, though his eyes still burned with menace. Erin whispered, "You built an empire of silence, but tonight it falls." Maya stepped closer, her hand resting lightly on Erin's shoulder, her voice soft. "The truth has finally been spoken." Jonah opened his sketchbook once more, lines fierce and alive, muttering, "And now the world will see it." Erin closed her eyes, a tear slipping free, as the storm outside broke open above them. The courthouse steps glistened with rain as Erin Cole stood in the glare of flashing cameras, her hands clenched tightly at her sides. She whispered, "They wanted silence, but silence is over." Reporters swarmed, shouting questions that blurred into noise. Maya Brooks remained at her side, calm and composed, her voice steady. "Every eye on you is proof that truth can't be erased." Jonah Reed stood on the edge of the crowd, sketchbook raised like a shield, his restless energy radiating. He muttered, "Let them write what they want. I'll draw what really happened." Erin's chest heaved with each breath as she raised her head toward the storm-lit sky. She said firmly, "I will not be buried again." The newsroom buzzed with phones and printers, but Erin's voice cut through as she placed the final document on the editor's desk. She said, "Publish it. Let the truth stand where lies once lived." The editor hesitated, his eyes flicking nervously to the door before whispering, "This will bring war." Maya's calm hand rested on Erin's shoulder, her tone soft but unyielding. "Then let the war begin, because silence has already killed enough." Jonah leaned against the wall, restless energy pouring from him, muttering, "People need to see before they forget." Erin's hands trembled as the editor finally nodded, her heart hammering as she whispered, "Then let the world judge me, not the lies they made." The newspaper presses thundered to life, spitting out headlines that would ripple through every corner of the city. Erin stood in the dim factory light, her eyes locked on the first page rolling out. She whispered, "It's finally free." Maya stood beside her, her calm face glowing faintly in the golden light, her voice steady. "You've done what they swore you never could." Jonah darted between stacks of paper, restless energy uncontained, muttering, "They'll have to face it now. No more shadows." The sound was deafening, the air thick with ink and hope. Erin clutched the printed sheet in trembling hands, her voice cracking. "The truth has its own weight, heavier than any chain." The city streets awoke to headlines pinned on every stand, voices rising as truth spread faster than the storm. Erin walked among the crowd, her face pale but lifted, whispers trailing behind her. She said softly, "They know now. They finally know." Maya moved beside her, her presence steady and unshaken, her tone calm. "It doesn't matter if they believe today. The seed has already been planted." Jonah slipped between people, sketchbook open, capturing the faces of strangers, reading the bold print. He muttered, "The city is breathing different now." Erin's chest rose with a heavy breath, her eyes sweeping over the restless crowd. She whispered, "Justice is louder than silence." That evening, Erin sat in her apartment by the window, the storm finally breaking into quiet drizzle. She whispered, "I should feel free, but it feels heavier than ever." Maya placed a cup of tea on the table, her voice soft but edged. "Truth isn't light, Erin. It demands to be carried." Jonah leaned against the window frame, sketchbook in hand, muttering, "Carrying it is what makes it real." The city lights shimmered beyond the blinds, glowing faintly in the damp night air. Erin closed her eyes, her voice cracking, "Even if justice never comes, they will never bury me again." The silence stretched, heavy yet alive, as the room held its breath with her. The night was heavy with silence as Erin Cole stood at the window. The city sprawled out beneath her like a battlefield scarred by truth. She whispered, "It's done, yet the weight doesn't leave me." Maya Brooks sat quietly in the armchair, her hands folded neatly, her voice calm. "That's because truth changes us, Erin, and it never gives back what it takes." Jonah Reed leaned against the wall, his sketchbook balanced on his knee, his restless pencil still scratching lines. He muttered, "Scars mean you survived, not that you're free." Erin's chest rose sharply as lightning flickered in the distance, her reflection pale and unsteady in the glass. She said softly, "Then I will live with the scars, because silence is heavier than this truth." The courthouse steps were empty now, rainwater pooling in shallow cracks as Erin walked slowly across the stone. She whispered, "I gave them the truth, but I still feel the chains." Maya's voice echoed softly behind her, "Chains break slowly, Erin, but they do break." Jonah's sneakers splashed in the puddles as he muttered, "The truth is already running faster than we ever could." Erin paused at the base of the steps, her eyes locked on the darkened courtroom above, every shadow heavy with memory. She said with a trembling breath, "The place that buried me is now where I rose." In the park, damp leaves scattered across the path as Erin paused near the weathered statue, her hand brushing against cold stone. She whispered, "Broken things still stand, even when forgotten." Maya's tone was soft but steady. "You've stood, Erin, and that's more than they expected." Jonah sketched quickly on the bench, his voice sharp but hopeful. "Broken things are the ones that last the longest." Erin's eyes glistened as she looked upward through the thinning clouds, a fragile strength flickering across her pale face. She said, "If this is what survival looks like, then let it speak for itself." The apartment was quiet, filled only with the hum of the city beyond the blinds. Erin sat on the couch, the sealed letter in her hands, her breath shallow. She whispered, "I've run from this too long." Maya watched her from the doorway, her calm voice steady. "Some truths wait until we are strong enough to face them." Jonah shifted restlessly by the window, his sketchbook half closed, muttering, "It's never the letter that breaks you, it's the memory inside." Erin's fingers trembled as she tore it open, her eyes scanning the words that bled into her. She whispered, "Even the dead speak louder than silence." The rooftop was silent under the breaking dawn, the storm finally retreating beyond the horizon. Erin stood at the edge, the letter folded in her hand, her face pale, but unbowed. She whispered, "The deal destroyed me, but it did not erase me." Maya's voice carried softly behind her, "Justice is never clean, Erin, but survival is its own kind of victory." Jonah leaned against the ledge, sketchbook pressed against his chest, his restless eyes fixed on the rising sun. He muttered, "Stories don't end, they echo." Erin closed her eyes, her voice trembling, "Then let mine echo until even silence is broken."